Welcome to The Breeder's Brew, the dog breeding podcast hosted by myself, Sara, the canine family planner,
and me, Isabel, the canine nutrition coach.
We're promoting responsible breeding by unpicking the minefield of breeding myths and methods for owners wishing to expand their whelping wisdom. I'm confident you will enjoy this chat with Steve from Womlu Mastiffs. We discuss his journey into dog breeding, the challenges faced in maintaining the Mastiff breed, and the importance of health testing and importing dogs for genetic diversity. We also explore the impacts of environmental factors like microplastics on fertility and the challenges of multiple dog households with breeding dynamics, emphasising the need for responsible breeding practices and support. Enjoy the listen. I called somebody else on a previous episode the triple threat, but actually I realised that they're not. And Steve and Steve's wife Tracy, who's not on the call, but they're very much in the dogs together, they really are the triple threats because they were finalists for the Breeder Vision Award, the Breeder Excellence Award, and they actually won the Breed Mastery Award. So I'd like to welcome to the podcast, Steve.
Good morning.
It would be fabulous, Steve, if you could just start off with a bit of your background, how you've, well, obviously we cross paths quite frequently, but how did we get to that point? What's your history in dogs? Why do you love the breed that you now have? So yeah, like a little bit of background about how you've come to be would be fabulous.
Yeah, I didn't really grow up with dogs. We had a pet dog. When that died, never got another one. And basically my parents told me that when you get married, you can do what you want and get whatever pets you wanted. I grew up as a child with Blue Peter and everything and fell in love with Labradors because they were always on the telly. So me and the wife decided when we got married, that's what we were going to have. But that changed in 1991 when a friend of ours owned a pub and they told us they were getting a dog, a Mastiff. Didn't even know what a Mastiff was, had no idea. But then we got the call, we've got him, you've got to come and see him. So we went to the pub, walked up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs, we were met by a Mastiff. And it just broke our hearts, and that was the dog that we wanted. So we got married in 1991, came back from honeymoon, contacted the Mastiff Association, and got our first Mastiff. And that's where it all started. Luckily, or unluckily, the people we got him from said, "Oh, do you want to come to a dog show?" And we said, "Dog show? What's that?" Because like I say, not growing up with dogs, we didn't even know they had dog shows. So we went to our first show in 1991, and we were hooked, and we've shown ever since. But what we did soon realise was the dog that we bought as a pet was a pet. He didn't really do well at showing, but we soon realised that we needed another dog, and that's how it all started really from there, and it's sort of snowballed to what we got today. So.
And so what do you have today? Talk through some of your achievements, and because you're here, there and everywhere, you're always around the country in different countries. So just talk through some of your higher accolades.
I think the biggest highlight was Bertie, who we didn't breed and we brought in as a puppy, but he's won all over Europe. He's champion in Ireland. He's an international champion. He's the only Mastiff to ever get a Group 4 placing at Crufts. And he was just a dream to show. I didn't actually show him. We had a friend that absolutely loved showing, was a junior handler. So she showed him and they just bonded. They were, absolutely brilliant in the ring. But we've got more than one dog we show. We've retired Bertie now because there wasn't anything else he could do. He had 2 best of breeds at Crufts, a reserve best of breed at Crufts. And like I say, now we've got some of our younger dogs that we've bred ourselves coming through, so they're just starting off on their journey. We go to Ireland about 8 times a year, and we do Belgium, France, Denmark, Geneva. So yeah, we're all over the place.
You've definitely got the show bug, that's for sure. So explain to people that might not know, you have English Mastiffs. They're different to Bull Mastiffs. Does anyone ever get confused? Or any other type of Mastiffs? Do people mistake your breed for anything else?
Right, straight away, you've called them English Mastiffs. They're not English Mastiffs. They are just Mastiffs. They are one of the oldest breeds of dogs in the world. They do date back to Roman times. And every Mastiff is a derivative of the Mastiff, which is what we've got. I understand why people call them English Mastiffs, because if they ask you what breed it is and you say Mastiff, straight away they say, oh, Bull Mastiff. If you then turn around and say to them, oh, it's an English Mastiff, then it's straight away, oh, an English Bull Mastiff. No, it is just Mastiffs. The problem is there's not many of them about. 2023, there was 69 puppies born in the whole of the UK. So people don't see them. So it's educating them. I haven't got a problem with them being called English Mastiffs, but some people within the breed, you would be hung if you said it in front of them.
This is really interesting because Bulldogs is exactly the same. So I feel bad that I didn't know that, because especially nowadays, Americans will always refer to the Bulldog as the English Bulldog. And then obviously the French Bulldog become amazingly popular. So I now say to people, I've got English Bulldogs, but they are only Bulldogs. So it's exactly, I'm in the same boat as you, that I never realised that. Because like you said, any other Bulldog is based off of the Bulldog, but it gets so confusing now. I just say to people they're English Bulldogs because they're going to think I've got French Bulldogs or, I don't know, American Bullies
I
or
think
something.
When you go back years and years ago, when there wasn't all the different types of Mastiffs, obviously it was easier, but, there's so many different varieties now. And of course, not everybody knows their breeds. We find that the older generation do tend to know what a Mastiff is, because obviously they were a lot more popular in the days. And like I say, with our numbers declining now, you can see why people, do get mistaken quite easily. So,
just to put some context to it for people that are listening, there are registered around 25,000 Labradors a year. So to have only 69 Mastiffs registered is an absolutely minuscule of a number. So why do you think the numbers have decreased?
I think, obviously, people's lifestyles have changed. People are busy. Houses have got a lot smaller. People are living in flats and stuff. So everybody looks at a Mastiff is, it was the heaviest dog in the world. They're not the biggest, but they when the Guinness Book of World Records did the record for the heaviest dog, it did weigh in at 23.5 stone. So yes, they are a large breed, and they're a very difficult breed to bring up. It's like bringing up a baby, because the bones are very soft. You have to avoid running up and down stairs, jumping in and out of cars. And the other major factor is also vet bills. If you are unfortunate enough to have to visit the vet with a Mastiff with any operations, the bills can be eye-watering. They really can. And also, we have got a few health issues. We are on the watch list with the Kennel Club. More and more people now are doing their homework before they get a dog. So, they can be put off with some of the issues. And it's very difficult to improve on the breed when the gene pool is so small. So obviously, that's where we import a lot of stuff from abroad. But everything comes back to a few sort of breed, a few dogs in the lines. So it is difficult to breed out issues if you have got them. So,
out of interest, what's your Kennel Club coefficient, like your breed average?
I think it's down, it's about 13%, I think. But obviously it is difficult to get. That's why, like I say, we are bringing a lot of stuff in from abroad.
How do you find it'd be good just to cover sort of importing dogs, because not many people do that, and obviously you've just highlighted the importance of it because you need the gene pool. What's the logistics? How do you go about finding a breeder, actually getting the dog over to you? Just for anyone that hasn't imported a dog before, it'd be good for them to know.
Yeah, I think sort of social media's really, really helped, with Facebook and Instagram and everything. And like I say, you join a lot of groups, you become friends with people all over the world. And obviously everyone's posting their dogs online. So, of course, you see something that catches your eye, you contact the breeder or the owner, and then you sort of build up a bit of a rapport with them and stuff. And obviously where we judge or show in Europe, obviously we get to see some of the dogs as well. I find abroad some of the dogs absolutely look lovely, but when it comes to movement, it lets them down a little bit, which then obviously puts us off. So yes, it does get, in a way, it is easier with social media, but then also I think restrictions now on bringing in frozen semen is getting harder and harder. And I know customs can be very awkward when it turns up, because they can hang on to it and ruin it.
Is something I'm slightly concerned about. It's hard because I feel that we had a lot of government restrictions were relaxed to make diversity of dogs easier, and now they seem to be reining them back in, which just seems a bit crazy, because it's like sort of trying to put the horse back in the stable, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this new legislation that's coming in about, can't import puppies until 6 months. With Mastiffs, that's going to be very, very tricky because obviously food bills for Mastiffs are very large when they're puppies because they do eat you out of house and home. And of course, breeders don't want to hang on to a puppy for 6 months. And also, you want to integrate them into your pack as well. And with a Mastiff getting to 6 months, they have fear stages and stuff like that. And if you don't work it correctly, you can end up with a scared dog in the future. And also, I think where we're a vulnerable breed, like others, there should be an exemption for it. And especially if you are a proper breeder, there should be ways of getting around it, but they don't seem to care. And I do personally feel the Kennel Club with some of the vulnerable breeds, it's almost they wish the breed had gone. They don't want us anymore. That's how you sort of feel as a vulnerable breed at times.
Yeah, well, I feel like that, and I've got a vulnerable breed. So the Kennel Club are like, mate, when are these bulldogs going to disappear? They are the bane of it.
It is almost a headache for them. They sort of, we got the vulnerable breed at Crufts and stuff, but the other year they had a picture lined up of all the vulnerable breeds, and they removed the Mastiff from it because apparently they didn't like the eyes on it.
This is the problem when you're pandering to please everybody. And I don't know, the American Kennel Club, I don't know, they probably don't have the same type of pressures. And I think the Kennel Club have tied themselves up in knots a little bit because the American Kennel Club are very much just a registration database and they don't oversee breed standards. So it's not really their responsibility if they're not bred to the healthiest of criteria, where the Kennel Club kind of took everything under their wing. And now that's made them accountable for everything. And then it's easy to go, you're not doing a very good job. When
it's the same. They had the Assured Breeder Scheme, which we belong to. Absolutely brilliant. But obviously they've done away with it now. And they've introduced, they've watered it right down. Rather than have a 5 sort of star rating, I do believe that anybody that breeds should have some form of health testing just to try and improve the breed and everything like that. But just to do away with a breed so they can get more people on it, I just don't think it's right.
What health testing do you do for the Mastiffs, out of interest?
Well, we do hips, elbows, cystinuria, which will kill a dog if you put 2 affected dogs together. It's crystals forming in the bladder, which is just a swab, so it's a simple test. We do eyes, heart testing. Many years ago, we had a Mastiff that needed an operation. It was a big dog. The vet wanted him heart tested before he was operated on, so we went to a specialist, got a full and clean bill of health, went in for the operation. 20 minutes into the operation, died of a heart attack. So ever since then, we've been a little bit dubious with heart testing. And we've now just started to do the long hair gene because there's a lot more what we call fluffy Mastiffs appearing, which we think dates back to just after the World War II when they introduced St. Bernards to get the numbers back up. So it's a recessive gene that sits there, but it's a simple test again. You can do it with the same test as you do with a cystinuria. It's a swab, and it tells you if the dog carrying the gene or not. So you can eradicate the long-haired Mastiff if you need,
Okay, and what colours do they come in? Is it just the brindle and the fawn?
Well, you've got a fawn, and then you've got an apricot, and then you can end up with a fawn brindle or an apricot brindle.
Okay.
And you don't see them in this country, but I think Australia, there's this thing called a pied Mastiff, which is very similar to a St. Bernard, which is like white with patches over it. So there was a real big thing, I think, back in the 80s that you can't breed them, all the puppies should be destroyed, and they actually run a test. So you could, if you had it, you didn't breed from it, but you don't see them over here.
So do you think that's come from being crossed with the St. Bernards, that white as well, or not?
Yeah, well, certainly you always get white on Mastiffs. Even the fawn have it, but it doesn't show up. But on the dark brindles, you can end up, we've got one that's got white toes. Normally you end up with a big white patch on the chest. You don't seem to get it anywhere else. So we currently got a Mastiff now that has got no white on it at all, a real dark looking brindle, which looks absolutely lovely. It is, everything is sort of coming back, we possibly think, to the St. Bernard. So.
Right, okay. And it's not classed as a mismark or anything, is it? It's just part and parcel of the breed.
No, you can show, obviously, if you've got a Mastiff and it's got big chunks of white on it, obviously if a judge is deciding between 2 dogs, you'll probably lose it possibly on that.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Have you imported females as well as males or just males?
Yeah, we've imported one female from Italy.
Okay, so yeah, where's the countries that you have imported from? Have they been mainly Italy?
Italy and Czechoslovakia. The first one was a disaster. We used a foreign courier, and his sister came over with him as well and went up to Nottingham. And in the evening, we got a phone call from them and said, just check your dog over because I found a couple of ticks. So, of course, we had a friend staying with us whose luckily his eyesight was a lot better than ours. So we sort of laid him down and everything. Well, cut a long story short, we took 80 ticks off of him. Most of them were babies, really, really small. And we think what happened, the courier was stopping off in like forests and taking them for a walk. The only thing we can think of is possibly the dog sat in a tick's nest or something because it was really, really strange. But 2 weeks later, then the dog collapsed and everything. But cut a long story short, he ended up with Lyme's disease, which affected his joints and everything. So unfortunately, it's a dog that we chose not to breed from in the end. So because he just ended up with different issues because he was on so many antibiotics and everything. So that is one of the gambles you take. But luckily now we have found a superb courier that he's the only person we will now trust to bring dogs in for us.
And that's
Chris Joyball from K9.
Yeah.
Couriers, so absolutely brilliant. He's the only person, like I say. He also shows as well. He's got bull mastiffs, so he understands the sort of giant breeds as well, and he treats them like their own.
Yeah, that's what you want. And so, are the breeds more popular abroad, or is it the same low numbers?
I believe in
everywhere?
America, they're the 36th most popular dog now.
Wow!
So they are huge. They can sometimes look a little bit different. Sometimes they're a little bit longer in the leg over there. But I think across Europe, France, Italy, I think the numbers are declining there as well now. So, because the days have gone of large breeders. To have a large kennel of mastiffs, you need very, very deep pockets and space. And it's a full-time job.
How much food do they eat a day?
Well, when they're puppies, on average, they're growing a stone a month. So we feed kibble now. We used to feed raw, but we've gone on to kibble. And I suppose, a male dog could possibly eat a couple of kilos a day.
Yeah, so you're looking at a bag a week at least.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
The dogs we got now, I suppose we're getting through probably 24, 25 kilos a day in food.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it makes me laugh when you go, there's not that many big breeders around. I'm like, well, Steve, you're definitely one of them, that's for sure.
There used to be, you go back into the 50s and 60s, there'd be dozens of people that would have 30, 40 mastiffs without a problem and breeding.
I think it's I don't necessarily, it's the risk of if something doesn't go to plan. It's all well and good having a dog and spending £200 on dog food a month. Some people would cope with that. Some people, well, the insurance would only go one way, up and up and up, wouldn't it? But I think it's always that risk of, as you say, when you're dealing with the big breeds, an anaesthetic on a French bulldog compared to an anaesthetic on a 70-kilo dog is light years apart. And I think that's the problem, just not knowing what that top
when you sort of say 70 kilos, a fully grown female would probably be up to about 90 kilos, and a male will probably go up to about 120 kilos. And I think the thing that's going to stop breeding, I personally think, especially giant breeds, are vets, because now all vets are sort of being privatised and being bought out by big companies and everything like that. And all they're doing is putting up their fees and stopping out of hours. It's going to stop a lot of people being able to breed.
It all just becomes too risky, isn't it? You're just taking too much risk not to know that your dog is going to get the right medical support should it need it. And then you're just writing blank checks to people that you've never met before.
To have to go 30, 40 miles for an out-of-hours vets is just crazy, especially with giant breeds, because the one thing they can suffer with is bloat, and it's the difference between life and death. If you've got to travel an hour and a half just to get to an out-of-hours vet, you lose your dog.
I do feel like there's been a lot of, I would say, sneaky changes, but there's been a lot of minor changes that have changed, like the culture of dog ownership has changed, and it just definitely feels a lot more commercialised and a lot more about...
These corporate vets don't want owners like us. They're not interested because we know too much. They just want to do the microchipping or whatever else, the injections, the yearly injections, the flea, you sign up and pay a monthly fee.
Yes, sell you the antibiotics and your wormer and all the rest of it.
Yeah, we used our vets for 30
spay
years.
Your dog.
We used our vet for 30 years and they've literally sold out a year ago. And, we're going to improve everything. All they've done is put the bills up and done away with out of hours. And I know someone that didn't realise they weren't doing the out of hours, phoned them up because their dog had bloat, had to go to Eastbourne, which is like 20 miles away. The dog didn't make it because of that.
That's terrible. I really do think that communities of dog people, like in America, they do all these scholarships and bursaries and all this kind of stuff. I feel that there should be pockets of dog community, so like the show community, for instance, where we should pay for some children of dog families to go through vet school and to set up breeder-friendly practices. Like if we don't back it, who else is going to? They're not, are they?
I think the trouble is you're going to end up what I call them like hobby breeders, where someone's got a dog, they've got a bitch, they love it, they want a puppy, we'll breed her. Nothing wrong with it, but they're not necessarily going to do the health testing and everything like that. That's where I think the Kennel Club need to be stepping in. If you want to register as a dog with us, whatever your breed type is, you should be doing this, and this.
I don't think that'll help because people just go, well, I'll just breed the dog and won't register it then.
Well, yeah,
I'll show you the parents' paperwork.
To be honest, the only reason you need to register a dog with a Kennel Club is if you want to show it, isn't it?
Yeah, and the numbers on showing are dwindling. Years ago, it did used to matter that you went and used a champion stud and, they had these accolades but nowadays that doesn't matter. That doesn't, well, to some people it matters, but for the people like you've just said, where they've just got a female, they want to breed it, they probably don't really matter. They're probably just going to use the dog that's closest.
Unless you bring in a licence, isn't it? If you want to breed, you've got to have a licence.
Yeah, and I think there are rumblings of change. I think I read a review. It was like a I need to share it, but it was a review on like the dog breeding license so far, and they're basically saying that up until this point, stud dogs have been excluded, so they want to now include stud dogs into the whole licensing. They want to reduce it from 3 litters a year to 2 litters a year. How that was written, they understood that the majority of breeders, like 80%, are just people like what you described. They've got a female, they want to go through the experience, so they want to keep a puppy and they're just going to give it a go. So then they're not necessarily up to date, up to speed with all the expectations of what should happen. But I still couldn't see how this license was going to, and because they weren't saying everybody has to do it, they were just saying 2 litters. But as you said, surely it's if you breed a dog, you have to do these things, regardless of who you are, regardless if they're registered, for the safety of the dog, if not anything.
Yeah, because the biggest problem with the licence now, someone like us, we go for the breeder's licence. Fine, you do an inspection, you pass it, but then they pass your details on to planning.
Yeah.
And then what they're saying is, you're running a business now, so you need change of use on your house. You need to go from residential to commercial. And of course, if it goes into planning, they're not going to give it to you. And then all the neighbours will be up in arms because, you're a dog breeder, it's going to be noise and stuff like that. So
1,000%.
That's something that needs to be addressed. And because if they refuse you, technically, you can't have dogs anymore.
Yeah, I'm surely if you have a dog activity, then you're not just breeding for profit. So you shouldn't need to be a business because the activity is the passion and you need the dogs to fuel the passion. So that's why you're breeding the dogs. So to me, as soon as there's a dog sport involved, whether that be showing, agility, flyball, working, whatever, as soon as to me personally, common sense, you should disregard the fact that it's then a business. And like people will make money. And so, yeah, keep account. But like charities keep accounts, don't they? So surely it should be on that kind of, I'm keeping account. So, if I was to make money, then I will pay some tax. But my purpose is not to breed for profit. It's to breed for my passion, where I understand I could end up in profit. But I don't know, there just seems to be this grey area that the concept of that, because if you don't have a passion, then you are breeding for profit. You can't really deny it. If you make money, then...
Yeah, we breed to improve the breed. That's what we're doing. We're not doing... we don't do it for money.
No.
The amount of bad
oh my God, you definitely don't, Steve. I was going to say, you'll be best off selling all the dogs and having a nice cruise somewhere.
Yeah, I used to know, same as you did. I used to know people who had XL bullies, and it was eye-watering, the money they were selling for puppies and getting for a litter and stuff. And you sort of think, here we are struggling to get the bitches into whelp and stuff, and they were just knocking litter out after litter. So, yes, things do need to change, but they sort of tar everyone with the same brush, unfortunately.
Yes, and they've tarred because that industry market did exist, every dog breeder gets tarred with that brush. You're like, hang on a second. Like, no, those people were never in that doing it for those motivations and those purposes anyway. So surely you should have an understanding of how that differentiates them. So let's talk about some of the challenges that you've had with breeding, because you own big dogs. So most people think, wow, if you've got, like you said, 80, 100 kilo dog, which I think is absolutely insane. But if you've got a dog that big, then your dog must have like 14 pups a litter.
I think when you go back years ago, Mastiffs did have 10, 12, 14 puppies, and you still get it occasionally now. But what I've found with a lot of breeders now, the numbers are really dwindling. You end up with 4 or 6. And I think a lot of that's got to do with climate change as well, because when you speak to fertility specialists and stuff, they're seeing it. It's the same in the wild as well, apparently, with the wildlife not producing the same amount. There's all different reasons. There's all different reasons for that.
Yeah.
Some people say it's all to do with plastics, especially in the boys, because, like I say, dog food goes down a conveyor belt, it picks up microplastics, and it ends up affecting the sperm on the dogs. As you know, we use you to do all our sperm analysis, and you can have a dog, you can test it, absolutely brilliant. You test it a year later or 6 months later, and it's dropped off. Nothing's changed. They're all on the same food. We give them vitamins and everything. And I think also, like with the girls, you could almost set your clock. Every 6 months they'd come into season. But now it does seem to be the weather is really affecting them. They're coming in earlier, they're coming in later. And it's like now ours technically aren't due until probably the end of March. But something's definitely happening because the boys are marking all over the place, which is a sign that someone's coming into season.
I have some clients in and they go, oh, we never used to do all of this stuff years ago. We never used to have the blood test and we never checked the boys and we just let them run around the garden and they get on with it. But like you've just highlighted, the world is so much more complex than it ever used to be. Even the foods that we eat. Years ago, people were cooking from scratch. Now, you just pierce the lid, shove it in the microwave. You've got a hot meal in seconds, job's done. People are so busy. The pace of life has got so quick that now it's so complex that, any one of those can be a disruptor. Microplastics is huge. It's impacted humans massively. I mean, I think I used to work with a lady that used to be the chairperson of a twin society. And I said to her, oh, is that because twins runs in your family? Because I went to school with someone and she had every other generation it was twins. And I actually had 2 sets of twins in my school. And she was like, no, you do realise like 80% of twins nowadays are IVF. And oh, okay then. She's like, no, most twins are going to be IVF because human fertility has decreased so much that that's now what we have to do to get kids. And so it just goes to show if humans are going to that degree, why would our dogs that live exactly our lifestyle in our houses, there's no animal no closer to us than a dog, that their fertility wouldn't be impacted too. And I do feel that like you have a giant breed, and I think that just exacerbates the problem tenfold. I think as soon as you do some extremes, the bulldogs, at one point they were super extreme. They had their own problems. If you're super big, if you're super small, if you're as soon as you have that just adds an extra element of complexity and difficulty that you do feel like, well, a salmon's swimming upstream sometimes to make some basic things happen.
Yeah, I think our problem is because all of our dogs are pets as well. That is predominantly what they are. If they don't like showing, we don't show them. But a lot of them, Mastiffs you can't put a Mastiff on their own in a kennel. They do not like it. A lot of the girls live together, but that creates problems because if you've got one dominant bitch, it will suppress the others. And, so we're having to fight with that as well. So sometimes we move one of the girls in with the boys before they're coming into season. So it's not as simple as everyone thinks, we just stick 2 dogs. Like I say, we do all the progesterone testing. And we predominantly do TCI, which is putting the sperm in using cameras and everything. So everything's spot on. The sperm's good. The progesterone's good. It's going in, and they still don't take. And then you hear someone that's got a pet dog, one dog, do a natural mating, and ends up with 12 puppies. And you just and whether it is the environment, I do not know. I don't know if that comes into the mix as well. So
yeah, I think it's a combination of all as soon as you get a multiple dog household and there's their own pack dynamics, then you're always going to have that extra element. So I do always feel that those girls that live in a house and they're the only dog, that like they literally don't have any of those dog communication concerns. They're just living their best life, I suppose. So I do find in any setting, in any breed, generally those type of females just tend to catch more than not even a kennelled dog, but just dogs that live in a bigger pack because they do have their own dynamics. And I think I read a study, it's the same with women. Like even if you have a group of women working in an office, the alpha female, when she has her period, she will bring all the other females at work. I knew that like dogs start sinking, females start sinking, even females in the same household, but I'd never knew from an alpha female point of view that also happens in humans. So it just goes to show that's just biology, and layered on top the breed, layered on top the microplastics, layered on top, like it just stacks up and stacks up.
When we import semen from abroad, it's costing up to £2,000. By the time you paid for it and brought it over and everything, and then you have it put in and nothing. It's not so bad when you're using one of your own stud dogs, but if you put that into the equation as well, it isn't anyone that says, I'm going to get myself some Mastiffs, I'm going to make some money, you will not. Yeah.
You just start laughing and you're like, okay, then speak to you in 4 years'
like
time.
Say, you've got to find the homes for them as well. And I know someone that I think, they had 13 puppies, and I think 6 months later, they've still got something like 9 of them. They didn't do health testing. And of course, people didn't want them. So that's one thing. The public can change people's way that they breed. If members of the public will only buy health-tested puppies, that will stop a lot of breeders, not doing any tests. But you can speak to people that breed, waste of time doing hips and elbows and everything else, don't need it. It's a complete waste of money. So you're never going to change that mindset.
No. I know Tracy's really active with your Instagram, which we'll put a link in the show notes. So I know you have a really big following, and I know you have wait lists. Like I'm sure you.
We get a lot of people that are interested. The husband might be interested in a Mastiff, the wife's not sure. So we literally say, well, come and spend the afternoon or the morning with us and meet them in their true environment, because you can all go to the show and see all the best dogs and everything. But we say, look, come to us, spend as long as you want. Don't wear clean clothes, because you will go home absolutely covered in hair and slobber, as you know. And educate them. And normally, 99% of the time when they leave, both of them want a Mastiff. But then that's the problem. They go on our waiting list, which is years now, because we're just not having the numbers. And once people have a Mastiff, that tends to be the only dog they have. They stick with them, because it's like living with another human being, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, but it is just educating. That's the most important thing to us, is, getting the breed across. Because if we don't, I think in 10 years' time, I think Mastiffs, you'll be lucky. Certainly in the show ring, you will not see them, because we're slowly losing all of our tickets when we show.
Are you? Right, so your CCs are going down.
Yeah, we're going down and down. But even some of the shows like Blackpool, we always had good numbers up there. We lost tickets a couple of years ago. It's
I
silly
think
to me.
showing's just got too expensive. I think
what killed showing for myself is social media. Because in the old days, if you didn't like someone or you had something to say, you either picked up the telephone and told them, or you wrote them a letter. Now it's just too easy to put it all over Facebook. When we won Best of Breed at Crush last year, it was absolutely horrible on social media, all mainly from abroad. And it wasn't just the dog they were attacking, it's us. They didn't even know us. They caught, accusing us of cheating and everything. And it's like a hate campaign. And that is the problem. And, we just sort of shrug it off at the end of the day. We're used to it. But, you can see a lot of people, why they get fed up with showing. And I know the Kennel Club have introduced different things about social media and, you can be banned from showing, but nothing really happens. And I think this is where it's a hobby at the end of the day. I think people forget that. It's just lucky there's no money involved, because I hate to think how vile it would get then.
I respect anyone that shows their dog, because they're the only people that are willing to put their money where their mouth is. So they're willing to say, look, I'm here for you to assess my dog, and I will have to take on the chin, whatever you think about it or not, and I'll read my critique and we'll go from there. Most people just don't do that in life. They're not willing to voluntarily put themselves under assessment.
I think if you're a true breeder, you know the faults of your dogs. You know, your dogs aren't perfect. You know what you want to improve, and that's what you strive for over the years. And that's why you do different breedings and stuff like that. If you weren't, you'd just keep knocking out puppies, for money. But a true breeder will try and every litter you have should be an improvement on what you bred before. That's the ultimate goal, I think. So.
Yeah, and it's hard to maintain consistency because the world is changing around you. So even like I've worked quite hard the last 2-3 years to use a lot of frozen deceased semen to get back a type. But because the type has changed, it's going to be really hard to maintain that type because I can't now go to another kennel that has a similar type because it doesn't exist. So even if you were doing amazing at one point of your dog breeding life, that won't last forever. It will change. So you're constantly trying to fight to get back to maintain that consistency. So even if you were smashing it out the park, you're probably not smashing it out the park 10 years later. It's really hard to maintain a real good consistency of dog. So yeah, just another challenge to add to the complexities of breeding dogs. What do you most like about the Mastiffs? I know you said about they're very human-like.
Yeah, I think it is the loyalty. They crave human companionship. They're not a nasty breed at all. They're not an aggressive breed or anything like that. If they feel there's a conflict or anything going on, they will literally just their size. They just put themselves in front of you.
And they're a guarding breed, aren't they?
They are.
Is that what
they were originally. They were a guarding breed. It's still there in the back of their brain somewhere. And like I say, they've got two types of bark. They're normal bark. And then there's a bark that literally goes through you. And literally, I can be gardening and I can leave the wheelbarrow in the middle of the garden. And the dogs, because it's not normally there, they just think they do not know what it is. And honestly, they stalk it, they crawl up to it. And the bark is like, blimey, it's just a wheelbarrow. But if it's not normally there, they will sort of put themselves between you and them and that danger of the wheelbarrow. So
yeah, that's very bulldog-like as well. So I guess that's the Malassa. Is that what it's,
yeah, well, that's where it's come from, isn't it? Because it's the bull mastiff and the mastiff. Just obviously a little bit of difference in size, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't need a dog any bigger than my Labrador now. So I'm like, no, yeah, the lab's big enough and she's small.
The trouble with Mastiffs do think they're a lap dog as well. If you will allow them on the sofa as a puppy, you've made your bet, to be honest. So
yeah,
you'll share it for the rest of your life.
You're getting your legs crushed and some. So moving on to the quick fire round. So just a few questions for you, Steve.
Right.
So the first one is, what's the most misunderstood thing about your breed?
I think people see their size and just think they're going to be aggressive. Literally, when you go walking with the dogs, if you meet anybody with a small dog, they cross the road.
Well, yeah, they are a big dog. And I guess do you walk one at a time, two at a time?
Yes.
How?
Because the trouble is, if you take two males, you can nearly be taking 1/4 of a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have actually qualified for the breeders group this year at Crufts, which is the first time Mass has ever done it. So we'll be taking 4 of them into the ring. So that's going to be quite entertaining. So especially as I think it's going to be televised as well. So
you could end out on the outtakes or some reels of getting dragged around or something silly happening. Oh, gosh. So. Well, it'd be worth it. Right, next question. What do you feel is the toughest trait to breed for?
Type, I think, really, at the end of the day, because Mastiffs is losing their type. So going by breed standard, that's the hardest bit, because obviously where people just keep throwing a couple of dogs together, it's weakening the breed, I personally think. So.
But what specific aspects, what do you see? Are they getting, like, say, taller, longer?
I don't think they're getting the bulk. I think they're losing depth of chest and they're losing the bone, and also movement as well is really, because to get 100+ kilo dog to run round the ring, it's very similar to humans. You don't see a 30-stone sprinter, do you, at the Olympics?
No.
So that is one of the things we are losing, is definitely his movement.
I always feel the American are a lot more showy. In like the presentation is a real big thing in America when you're showing your dogs. So,
Yeah.
and you said you feel that they might be a bit taller and legged. Do you think it's so they can keep that a bit more agility in that show environment?
I think the trouble is like anything. If you've got a lighter dog, you know, it's like Bertie that we done all the winning with. You know, he was 92 kilos. So for a male, you know, he wasn't big, but he had a ring presence about him. So
Yeah.
when he walked into that ring, he owned it. His neck was stretched. He was looking. He was nosy, and he was alert. And that's the one thing. That's what you all want in a show dog. You want a showman, and like I say, if you've got an overweight dog, too big, they're just going to plod in, aren't they? So it's trying to get that balance right on a big-looking dog, but not overweight.
Hard balance. Okay, right. Next question. What's one essential trait for a breed expert?
I think, you need to study pedigrees to sort of understand what you're introducing into your lines. Because, like I say, the gene pool is small. So, like I say, for a pet dog is totally different to a show dog. You're looking for two different things. Like if we're giving a puppy to a home with children, obviously you want a totally different temperament. So it is getting the temperament right for me, which is the most important thing.
And what? So you can understand temperament from a pedigree?
Well, you can, because obviously there are some lines that they're not nasty, but they're sharper than other lines. Nobody wants that. So obviously you want to try and breed for temperament, and because of the size of the dog.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Understandable. Yeah. The bigger the dog. Well, I mean, that's the problem that the XL bullies come into, wasn't it?
Well, this is where we're so lucky. Mastiffs haven't fallen into the wrong hands, because if you imagine a Mastiff like the XL bully is, you have got a whole lot of trouble on your hands.
Well, I guess this is why the Cane Corso seems to be getting lined up as the XL bully fallback, doesn't it? I see there was some interviews on the TV the other day, but I mean the temperament's totally different, because again, Cane Corsos are guarding, aren't they? Where
the job is all these temperaments, are introduced by humans at the end of the day. Because if you looked at the XL bully, if you look at the majority of the owners, and that's what done them the harm at the end of the day. Obviously, I think there is pit bull bred into them and stuff, so there is obviously a trait to be a bit nasty. But it's the same as the Cane Corso. It's the owners that are portraying them to be something that are not cropping the ears and pinning them up and just making them look sort of aggressive, aren't they?
There's a reason why Staffordshire Bull Terrier doesn't come above your knee, and there's a reason a Bull Terrier doesn't come above your knee. And basically, the XL bullies are that and like 10x'd. So it was always going to be a problem, not necessarily because of the temperament, because of the nature of the dog and the size of the dog, that it would then cause damage. I guess that's the disappointing thing, is that you didn't have breeders correctly vetting their owners for the owners to understand, you can't coop this dog up in a terrace house and not take it for a walk. You need to actually exercise this dog, train it, engage it, give it enrichment, and you'll probably be all right. And like I've always said to people, I never met a bad bully. Like, they're a big, powerful, strong dog, and there was a lot of people that couldn't handle the dog, but the temperaments were always spot on.
But for me, the government and the Kennel Club got it all wrong, because that was a prime opportunity to try and sort dog breeding out. But to go and ban the breed, yes, maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, but you had a prime opportunity to try and tackle the issue, which they just haven't done.
As you say, which is the people. It was us. We're the issue.
Yeah.
Even the Americans, when we really don't understand why you're having all these dog deaths, we just don't have that problem here. Even Holland, when, what are you lot doing to your dogs? But in Holland, they have to temperament test all their dogs, and it's sort of going back, not the dog license, but when you buy a dog, you have to, a bit like the Kennel Club Good Citizens Award, but it's compulsory. You have to do it. You have to teach your dog basic manners, not to be reactive. You have to leave it with a group of people it doesn't know, and it not be reactive. It has to not react to loud noises and all this kind of stuff. Because, if your dog basically listens to you, it's probably going to listen to you when you deem it to be doing something it shouldn't be doing.
Yeah,
and I think that's the problem.
When we showed our dogs in Geneva, Mastiffs were on the danger list, and they had to be muzzled whilst out in public and whilst around the show. So, of course, we then had to teach our older dogs to have a muzzle on, which they thought they're being punished. we found nice soft leather ones and everything and stuff like that. But cool, you're feeding them treats and they're looking like Hannibal Lecter. You've got all this slobber caught up.
Ridiculous.
It made them look more vicious, and that,
perception. Yeah, then the perception becomes really bad. Just out of interest, so when you were showing abroad, what was it? You were allowed to take the muzzle off once you were in the show ring.
Yes, technically you're supposed to walk up to the ring and then just whip it off outside. When we parked in, because the car park was inside, one day we walked without the muzzle just to go into the hall, big exhibition hall, bit like the NEC. But then on the other day, there was people around, no, put the muzzle on. Anywhere in Geneva, you had to have a muzzle on.
And, well, I guess that's the reason why a dog wouldn't be popular in a country, isn't it? Because now you're going to have to conform to all these extra rules and regulations.
Most people showing there, to be honest.
Yeah.
With those type, there's a few dogs, but some of the dogs over there, which are aggressive over here, didn't have to have it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, as you say, it's the people.
So we just stayed in France because it was right on the French border. We just stayed in a hotel in France because it was nicer for the dogs.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Okay, final question. If you had to describe breeding in one word, what would it be?
Hard work.
Well, that's polite compared to most people, but yeah, brilliant.
It is challenging, but we keep going. The knockbacks we've had, as most people give up, but we keep doing it because we strive just to try and improve the breed, so as best we can. So.
Well, yeah, your passion is no truer form than what you and Tracy have got.
We certainly don't do it for money, and that's why I'd like the tax man to come and see me.
See, so you can waste some of his time. Yeah, okay then, I want to prove something to you lot. Come sit with me. Let's go through this.
Well, like I say, it's just showing abroad, because the size of the van we got cost us an absolute fortune on the ferry and Eurostar. So.
Yeah, there's not anything you do, half-hearted, without a doubt. Yeah, no, there's cheap, half-hearted, you don't cut corners. There is no more you can do. So that's why you are the winner of the Breed Mastery Award. You were finalist for so many other categories because I don't see many, if anyone, trying harder for their breed than what you guys are doing for your Mastiffs. So it's to be recognised and applauded, and
we appreciate that. Thank you.
To be acknowledged, and I just hope you carry on.
Oh yeah, we'll keep going. So, like I say, all the girls are due in season now, or any time. Well, technically the end of March, but I think they're going to come in early, so we'll be seeing you.
Good stuff. All right then. Well, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you.
We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, keep up the good work. So,
thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much. All right.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
If you've resonated with this episode, you're already showing the mindset that matters the most. But great breeding isn't just about attitude, it's about understanding your breed, your specific circumstances, and where you are in the journey.
That's where a Brew Crew mentorship comes in. No one-size-fits-all advice, just personal, practical support shaped around you. Whether you're planning your first litter or refining your approach, we'll walk you through every step of the way.
So come on and join us at breedersbrew.com for tailored learning and a community that's raising the bar, one thoughtful, well-prepared litter at a time. Can't wait to see you there.